The topic for today is what is yoga? Is it April 21 today? 2013. I've been having a series of conversations with Raj Rani here, and it's actually been extremely interesting and extremely helpful to me. Raj has been mentioning about helping people to have an understanding of yoga in a way that is practical, useful, intelligible to each individual. Because most of the time when we talk about yoga, we sort of go to the heights, the mountaintops, and talk from that perspective, which is accurate, but it's not the only way to talk about yoga. And if people are going to pursue the yoga science, it has to have some meaning for them, some personal, intimate meaning for them. So I thought, gee, that makes a lot of sense. You chase after what you desire. If something is high philosophy, it's interesting, but it's not your daily bread. So I thought that makes a lot of sense. So we'll try to talk about yoga from a different perspective. And I'm not even going to define it right now, because then that gets up into very fancy philosophy. But if you think about your life and you say, it's always about asking the right questions. Where have I observed the greatest beauty in life? Where have I had the greatest sense of peace in life? Where have I seen true love manifest? What would be my greatest joy? If you start asking yourself those type of questions, the greatest beauty, the greatest love, the greatest kindness, the greatest peace, all of those have a personal meaning to us. Whether the greatest love of your life was having your baby, or meeting your husband, or maybe some great journey that you took that journey was like a love affair with life. If you ask yourself all those questions, the truth is all of those things are yoga. The question is, the thing is, you never really looked at it quite that way. You looked at it as an event, but not as an interpersonal reality that was not only an event, but also tied you to the universe. So if you say, where have I seen the greatest beauty? Where have I experienced the greatest love? The very fact that you perceived beauty, or perceived peace, or perceived love means that there has to be that inherent facility within you to perceive it. Otherwise you couldn't perceive it. The seed is there for you to have the experience. Actually the opposite is true. For you to experience anger in the world, there has to be a seed of anger in you. Otherwise you wouldn't be able to perceive it. You wouldn't have the facility. The hidden facility is there. One is evolution, one is devolution. Devolution. So, in looking at our lives, we have to sort of analyze sort of the real high points. And then we have to, you can say the process of yoga is the development of the high points of your life. The greatest love that you've experienced, the greatest sense of beauty, the greatest sense of peace. Really, really what it is doing is developing the highest points in your personal experience. Now you're sort of on a moving train, so the highest points at one point may not be the same as another point in your life. You're not a doorknob. You're an evolving creature, you know. So these sciences are all designed to connect you to yourself. In the human experience, what happens is we have multiple events, which are types of psychic or mental abstractions, and in a non-discriminative way, we emphasize these abstractions. So we're fixated on this idea, fixated on that thought, fixated on this trauma. It's a very random fixation. So, of course, our lives are up and down, up and down. Our lives are quietly very choppy because we have both conscious and unconscious fixations. And they haven't been sorted out as to what's productive and what's not productive. See? So in the yoga process, the great masters of the past have tried to get us to have a very discriminative mind. A mind that can look into the nature of an event and see if it's productive or non-productive. Non-productive, leave it alone. Productive, enhance it. And then, if it's productive, why? Why was it productive? Why did you enjoy the peace? Why did you enjoy the love? What was it about it that made it significant? So inherent in the yogic process is deep inquiry. Why does one want to be still? You know, can you imagine a scientist looking into a microscope, you know, with hard rock or acid rock blaring in the background? It's not that productive for the inquiry. You'll be distracted. So they developed a series of processes where you can become very, very still. You know, and in that stillness, you have the ability to observe in a very profound, a very deep, a very non-distracted way. Most of our psyche is distracted. We're doing one. If we're heading for work, we have 10 different thoughts on our. You know, did I turn the coffee machine off? You know, how's my husband today? You know, Susie's coming over. You know, am I going to make it to work on time? You know, our desire was to get from A to B, but we've got 10 series of thoughts going on in our mind. So there's not a whole lot of peace. So the yogis will say, take some time just to cultivate peace. And then as you cultivate peace, you cultivate insight. Because it's a non-distracted mind. You're taking all of the facilities. You know, we're very competent. We can do lots of things. And we build skyscrapers. It takes tremendous intelligence to do that. But in that peace, you can take that tremendous intelligence and focus it down onto things that are really, really meaningful. Things that are going to give you stability, joy, peace, love, insight. So it all starts with that peace, so that we can bring in all of our other facilities. So if we brought all of our facilities of intelligence and emotional intelligence and and physical intelligence into chaos, the results are not that great because it's in the wrong environment. It's in a non-productive environment. So each of us, the whole yoga process really is a process of endless inquiry. First from a very common level to a deeper and deeper and deeper level. You go through virtually the levels of nature. On an interpersonal way, and also within realms. You not only experience the common realm, but as your insight increases, you realize there's more dimensions. You think, well, heaven just created one dimension? Well, did heaven create just one flower, or one tree, or one human being? So why would it just create one dimension? If everything you see, the creation was, infinite variety. So why not infinite variety of dimensions? Why not? If this is a template as above so below, or as below so above, why do you think this is it? So it's very egocentric to think that this is it. So that's just a logical argument. But the thing is, as your attention can become deeper and silent, your vista of inquiry gets far broader. Just like if you're looking into a microscope, there's another dimension of life going on. Microbial life is there. Or if you look into a telescope, there's another vista. So we have to have really big minds, and to see that there's infinite dimensionality in all directions, and that we can participate in it. But the question is, well, where is our place in it? This is what part of what yoga is doing. It's giving you a place in the cosmos, and a significant place in the cosmos, not in an egotistical way, but in an integrative way. That you are part of a greater whole, but you've been profoundly distracted. Profoundly distracted. So we have to go through this process of saying what's really, 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 really important. What's really, really, really meaningful. Get your top 3, your top 5. And basically, your life's inquiry should be based on that. That's where we look at our life's inquiry, and we're putting a tremendous amount of emotional and intellectual energy into a lot of other things that are not part of that top 5. So we're a bit scattered, we're a bit drained. We're scattered and drained because no yoga. Yoga is that science and that method that integrates you to the whole. So if you're wandering around thinking of yourself as just one little unit, one little human being in this grand world, inherently that's a very vulnerable position. There's lions and tigers and bears, and you're this little lone unit wandering through existence. Inherently a vulnerable position. So, if you look at the history of human beings, they'll form families, they'll form clans, they'll form societies, they'll form nations. Why? They don't want to be alone. There's strength and there's security and strength in the mass, in the group. See? So that's a very exoteric way of looking at the human condition. Why do we have families? Why do we have societies? Why do we have nations? Security, you know. Mm-hmm. So that means in the human psyche, there's a hidden angst. There's a hidden sense of vulnerability. See? That's on the external level. There is actually no need for society, no need for family, no need for all these things. Are they useful and necessary? In our early evolution, yes. Absolutely useful, absolutely necessary. But as our psychic development increases, what was acquired through the exoteric community will be acquired from the esoteric community, meaning that the seed of each human being, or the seed of each element of nature, or the seed of each potency of God, you enter into a relationship with. Not only a relationship with, but you enter into a communion with. So now your base is not just one unit human being, but the cosmos itself. So, profound stability. What's there to fear if you're part of the bear, if you're part of the lion, if you're part of the tiger? What's there to fear if you're part of each human being? If there's a unique localized awareness, but a symphony of community and wholeness within it, within the greater existence. Then there's no strangers anymore. No human being is a stranger. They're all more than kin. You know, there's no strange grass or strange tree. You're in that community. It's again, the grass may be a little brother. You know. So it's a very, very different psychic perspective. So you can say, oh, that yogi sitting alone in the cave. Is he really alone? Is he really alone? In his psyche, is he alone? No. He's part of the community of existence. He's conscious, he or she is consciously part of the community of existence, where everything is a brother or a sister and a friend. That's a totally, totally, totally different reality. You know? So that says, oh my God, that sounds so far away. But first you have to think about these things and say, well, how did that yogi get to that point? Well, that yogi got to that point by analyzing what was his greatest love. What is the greatest peace that he or she has experienced? You know, what is the greatest act of kindness that they witnessed? See, you have to analyze your life in a very, very different way, and really create that top 3 or top 5. You know, everything else is sort of a creative distortion. You know, everything else is a creative distortion. You have to look very closely, very deeply into the most meaningful things. You know, if you ask yourself, what was the most beautiful thing I ever saw? Normally we just experience it, we put it in the package and put it on the shelf. But in the yogic process, you experience it, and you have to learn to live with it. You know, it wasn't just that event in elementary school where I had such camaraderie with close friends. You have to really analyze the feeling and what made it potent to you. You know, the key is in that analysis comes a greater understanding, and then the key is whatever that greatest beauty was, greatest peace was, greatest joy was. If you want to practice yoga, the key is to understand it, to remember it daily, and then to start to manifest it. You have to become a well of that beauty, a well of that peace, see? A well of that kindness. See? At that point, you are creating community. You're creating community based on the highest experiences of your life, the hallmarks, the things that moved you. See? So we're moving from petty to really big. And these are things that we actually have to write down. And because we want to try to put as much concentration into it as possible so that we become engines of these energies. And not only to remember, but then to generate those energies. And then to deal with people based on those energies. So if I look at Ram over here, I look at Julie over here, and I think of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced in my life, and then I look at them and I search for it in them. It's there. They're not living outside of this existence. It's there. So if I say, okay, I'm going to deal with Julia or Ram or Raj or Christopher, all these wonderful people here, based on the most beautiful things I've seen. Isn't that an interesting and unique relationship? Isn't that an empowering relationship for everybody? As opposed to them thinking, oh, he's looking at my frailties. Oh, I did this, I did that. Oh, maybe my nose is too big. That we're looking at one another based on our best experiences. So it's amplifying that in myself by concentrating on it. It's amplifying it in my brothers and sisters because that's what I'm looking for in them. I know it's there. It's definitely there. Love is not unique. It's everywhere. Peace is not unique. It's everywhere. So just like you want to get a model of that is Gandhi. Gandhi based his relationship with everybody on ahimsa, non-violence, which is another way of saying active love. It's another way of saying active love. That's how he dealt with humanity. That was his modus operandi, his functional principle, ahimsa. Ahimsa is radical peace, radical love. That's what it really is. And that was his functional principle. He changed the world. He changed the world based on seeing loving peace in each individual. Gandhi had no enemies. He had no enemies. There are people who didn't care for him, but from his side, there was no opposition. See? Even when he was having discussions with the British governors, and at one point the governor said, "You expect us to leave, to give this all up?" And Gandhi said, with a smile, "Not only do I expect you to give all this up, I expect you to give all this up and maintain a friendship," which really shocked them. It wasn't cut and run and have anxiety about it. No, he wanted them to leave peacefully and maintain a real friendship. He didn't want to break the continuity, the integrity of a loving relationship. That's really extraordinary. Based that they had their heel on the neck of that nation. So it's another example. Or you look at a Saint Francis who had an intimate relationship with divinity and learned to see all elements of life as divine, consummately, brother, sun, sister, moon. He looked at all the wildlife and the sky and the human community as intimate brothers and sisters. love for all. It's not that, he wasn't maligned and had difficulties, but he chose to put his full attention on the loving nature inherent in life. Not just in man, inherent in life. So he dealt with everyone from that loving nature. So we have to look at these models and say, well, there's yoga functioning in life. To practice yoga, you have to have a certain amount of vision, a certain amount of courage, a certain amount of radicalism. Jesus was a radical. So was Buddha. These are not people who just sat back on their laurels and said, well, this is life, this is the way it is, so I'll just take it as it comes. No, they did profound inquiry, found things that were a hallmark in their conscious experience, and they looked for it in the world. They looked for it in every element of life. If love exists, it exists everywhere. If peace exists, it exists everywhere. It's love is not isolated. Peace is not isolated. Kindness is not isolated. But they had to fight for it. Was the life of Jesus a divine cosmic battle? Absolutely. He was battling for the truth that love is infinite. He had to battle for it. The only reason he had to battle for it was not that his ideas were incorrect. They're correct. It's just the evolution of man. See, we're all at different states of evolution, so that we're all at different states of application of truth. So we go from very dark to gray to very bright, as per your level of evolution. But seeing that we're all in this evolutionary frying pan, and we really should realize that we are in an evolutionary frying pan. We're all getting shaped and baked. The key is to find a way out. Where none of us are immune from pain and disaster. But we can pass through that pain and disaster. So maybe that may come onto our flesh, but it doesn't have to affect our consciousness. Because if you look at the lives of all the great saints, by and large, pretty difficult routes, profoundly misunderstood, and had all types of adversaries, mostly because of egotism. But their consciousness was fixed on great principles that they had discovered. So yoga is a process of self-discovery. What was the greatest beauty in your life? What was the greatest love in your life? What was the greatest peace in your life? But don't just see it as an event. Make it into a contemplation. What was it about that love? What was it about that peace? What was it about that beauty? And then say, well, if it was there, where else is it? Because we have to stop thinking in isolation. See? We can't say it was just that event. No. That event was a portal. It was a momentary vision of a greater reality. So you realized it in a moment, and you thought that it was isolated. Because we think in isolation. Oh, that is a blade of grass. That is a human being. This is Raj. This is Christopher. This is Sylvia. We think in isolation. We don't think in terms of a grander community, a grander principle, where these things exist ubiquitously. See? So it's a change of mindset. It's a change of way of thinking. And in the beginning, you have to do this stuff secretly, quietly, because nobody's going to support it. If anything, they're going to hammer you. But if you pick that most meaningful experience, and then start having your own micro retreats or micro intensives, where you say, okay, out of the 5 principles or the 5 high experiences of my life, I'm going to pick one of them, and for 40 days, and I'm going to keep a journal. I'm going to try to deal with people from that point of view. I'm going to ignore the nonsense and see that element in them. I'm going to try to magnify that element in me and talk to that element in them.
How do you do that?
It always starts with yourself. So pick a principle so we can talk about what principle would you like to talk about.
The principle of loving.
Loving. Okay. The very first thing is to analyze where you've had that experience. It may be your grandmother. It may be, for me, it was my grandmother. So I think it's top of my head, sort of like unconditional lovingness. Or husband or childhood friend. You have to look deeply at that relationship and say, how did that relationship come to be? What motivated that relationship? What were they touching that allowed them to share that with me? See? So, in the beginning you'll have a rough understanding, but you just keep thinking about it. Where is that in me and how can I magnify it? So it becomes sort of an operating principle. Of course, in the beginning it's rusty because we haven't analyzed it carefully. But as we analyze it and start to work with it, it becomes more facile. It's more utilitarian. And then we just have to talk in such a way that we're talking to that element of the persons. Like loving kindness. Like one time my Guruji, there was these rogues that came into the temple. They looked like they were just discharged from the prison, that day. I mean, they were like rough and tumble and, hold on to your wallet. They were in the temple for mischief. And I said, I mentioned this to my Guruji. And, because I was really alarmed. This was trouble walking through the door. And my Guruji said, Haricharan, bring them upstairs. So I brought them up to the room. And I wasn't leaving at all because this is trouble standing here. And my Guruji, and these guys, I mean, these guys are like really fierce, And my Guruji looked at them with such sweetness. And then he walked across the room and stroked one of the guy's face and took the other guy's hand and just talked to them so sweetly that they absolutely melted. He literally stroked one fellow's face and then took the other's hand. Hello, how are you? Have you eaten? I'm happy that you've come. And he talked to them for maybe 5-10 minutes. And then said, oh, please go downstairs in the satsang hall. I'll be there just shortly. It was extraordinary because these fellows came for mischief. They came for trouble. They were not people who come to satsangs. They were outright rogues. But and then later on, I took them downstairs and came back upstairs, and I was saying, Guruji, what are we going to do here? These guys are, I mean, I was like totally impressed by his kindness and how things had gone, but I was still a little bit alarmed. Not a little bit, I was alarmed. And he looked at me somewhat fiercely, which was not that common for my Guruji, and said, Haricharan, who are you to judge? That was a great lesson. Because I was just looking at that fierce element of these fellows. And he was looking at the sanctity in them. Two totally different points of view. He saw the sanctity, I saw the trouble. You know, who are you to judge? He's absolutely right.
Where was this?
This was in an Oakland temple. Yeah, 174 Santa Clara Avenue in Oakland. So he dealt with them from a point of sanctity, a point of love, a point of kindness. And they absolutely melted. And at no point in the satsang, they left a little bit early, but at no point were there any difficulty. They were only there one time. They never came back. You know. But that's the power of just concentrating on one element in a human being and refusing to entertain anything else. See? So by him just seeing that element and dealing with that element, it helped to magnify that in them. So for that moment, they were completely pacified. You know, they had an experience that they probably hadn't had in their life before. Someone just looking at the love, at the kindness within them, and treating them with profound care. They literally melted. They really melted. And it was absolutely shocking. So, again, this is a template. You know, do we expect to be skillful at it in the beginning? No. But do we expect to become more skillful as we go on? Yes. See? So, again, we can't judge ourselves. We just have to be in process. And you have, maybe it might be like drilling through a brick wall in the beginning. But just like Jesus was relentless, or Buddha was relentless, or Krishna was relentless, or Gandhi is relentless, they're relentlessly kind. They're relentlessly loving. So we have to become relentless also. The universe is relentlessly loving. So we just have to sort of get that same relentlessness. We'll poke and then leave it alone, then poke and then leave it alone, as opposed to being like a drill and bearing down. If you look at Gandhi's life, which is such a great example, and his current example, he was like a drill bearing down. He just never quit. He just absolutely never quit. You know, he said everything in life was an experiment, and he was always experimenting with love and ahimsa. He just absolutely didn't quit. So he changed the world because he had a relentless application of a principle. So whether it's love, whether it's peace, whether it's kindness, whether it's beauty, you have to really find the greatest motivating principles. And then you have to become a type of fanatic. You don't think Jesus was a fanatic? He's a fanatic in the best sense of the word. In the very best sense of the word. So, if we're going to have some kind of a spiritual legacy, Jesus left a spiritual legacy. All the saints leave a spiritual legacy. What about us? What is our legacy? You know, how much carnage or how much beauty are we going to leave? But see, the thing is, no one tells us to think like that. What's our legacy? You know, we're thinking day to day, month to month, week to week, you know, crisis to crisis, event to event. But if we say, what is my legacy? You know, what is the wake that I leave behind? Like today, everyone knows the wake of Gandhi, or the wake of Jesus, or the wake of St. Francis, the wake of any of the saints, the wake of Krishna. You know, it's there. You know, it's changing lives even today. So they're not unique. They might be evolutionarily further along, but the stuff of a Gandhi or the stuff of a St. Francis is the stuff of humanity. You know, they're the same. They have all the same elements that we have, both strengths and weaknesses. But what they did was they emphasized their strengths and neutralized their weaknesses. Eventually, as they emphasized their strengths, those strengths purified the other stuff. You know, the common dross of humanity. this is all yoga. This is all the yoga process. But in one way, we all live in our own personal psychic worlds. We all have our own perceptions. We have our own realities. We have our own loves and fears that we live within. We live in that psychic bubble. The purpose of yoga is to break that bubble, that limited vision of ourselves, and that also distorted vision of ourselves. We should all realize the way we got to planet Earth is by being not well. You know, this is a planetary hospital. You have to get real. You know, you're not here because you're a god or you're a master. You're here because you're a human being, which is another word for patient. So, you know, you have to have just an honest appreciation of where you are. You know, you may be a nice guy, but you're still a nutcase. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. So, but the good thing is you're not a human being or a nutcase forever. You're in transit. That's the good thing. So, those universal elements are there despite whatever your personal creations have been. Okay? It's a case of being able to find those universal creations that are unchangeable, as opposed to your momentary creations. You see a car coming at you, you have fear for a moment, the car passes, no more fear. That is a momentary creation. What creation will last from first breath to last breath? Those are the things you have to look for. The things that are there in your first breath and in your last breath. Was love present in your first breath and last breath? Absolutely. Is peace there? Absolutely. In between that, can you imagine all the ups and downs of thoughts and feelings and, you know, momentary realities we had that are there for a moment and then gone? See? But that quality of love, that quality of peace, that quality of beauty, those types of things, they were there in your first breath. And they were there in your last breath. So, the things that are stable are the things we have to pursue. You know, 10,000 girlfriends or 10,000 boyfriends brought no stability. You know, lots of experience, no stability. And after 10,000, probably regret. You know, 10,000, you know, misperceptions. You know, we didn't look deep into the person. We looked superficially. Consequently, confusion, mishap, you know, the human condition. We didn't look the love, the stable love in Sylvia, the stable peace in Sylvia, the stable beauty in Sylvia. If I deal with her that way, can you imagine the relationship? That's a fantastic relationship. I'm looking at what's stable in her, not what's transient in her. That is our truly fulfilling relationship. It means the best in her is being amplified, and the best in her is being witnessed. Now, isn't that a revolutionary relationship? You know? So our life has to become this kind of a working experiment. You know? And some human being's going to make you work harder. But, you know, practice makes perfect. You know, there's that joke, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. Mm-hmm. That's a very common, silly joke. But that's really what we have to do. Did you just get it now? Instead of getting directions, yeah. So that really is what yoga is about. What yoga is. It is bringing you into the best that you can perceive. and that which is most stable in humanity. You know, there are underlying currents that allow all of this to persist. That's what we have. That's what yoga is to be able to find and integrate with that which is stable, which is truly stable, and not with the infinite, fluctuations of psychic life. That's why, there's patterns that are developed in the yogic process. The pattern of meditation, the pattern of prayer, the pattern of right action. These patterns, and the pattern of mantra, resuscitation of God's name, these patterns regulate our psychic fluctuation. Our minds are all over the place. They're fluctuating, really radically. How can there be peace when your mind is flying all over the place? It's just not possible. We're always a little bit, we're always a little bit agitated. But these patterns of prayer, mantra, meditation, right action, if we can integrate those into our lives, it draws in the very variant nature of our minds. Our minds are flying in very distant ranges. And it draws it in, draws it in, draws it in, until the mind becomes like a ray. See? And that ray will be focused on the existence itself, not on your personal creation, but on your existence itself. See? There's a big, big, big difference. So these constant practices, it focuses you, focuses you, focuses you, focuses you. Perfect insight. With that perfect insight, you can say, what is the nature of reality? You know what reality is. Right now, we don't know. We know what our personal creation is. That's what we know. But is our personal creation correct? It can't possibly be. Look at the level of conflict. It can't possibly be. See? So, as long as there's conflict, there's incorrect perception. I don't think the kingdom developed this creation to fight with each other. I don't think so. See? There's no saint that has testified to that. They have testified to a unity of love amongst all things, amongst all creation. They all have testified to that. So I take their word for it. But see, they've done these various practices that focus their attention and focus their psychic forces to be able to pierce our created reality, to see the reality, the substratum of our creation. See? So this is sort of the life goal that each person has to have quietly. Don't talk too much about it, because people won't understand it. And often what people don't understand, they basically want to smash. So maybe in this context of a Sangha, you'll discuss these issues and you'll discuss your personal application and your personal experiments. But it's not a good idea to do it in the general community. It will not be supported. So it's a life of persistent experimentation and persistent emphasis on the most quality moments of your life, and then learning to generate it and to see it in others. That becomes our experiment with life. It becomes our experiment with life. So that is the process of evolution, of conscious, intelligent evolution, as opposed to random, distorted, whatever. is what we live in. We live and die in it. You know, we can all look at various family members and sort of see their arc of existence and ask yourself the question, is there evolution going on? Or is it, you know, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back? You know, it's so choppy. Did they really make any progress? You know, be honest with yourself. Look at your father, your mother, your brother, your sister, your close friends, and ask yourself the question, okay, I've witnessed these people 30, 40 years. Can I honestly say there's real evolution going on there? Maybe some, yes. But a whole lot, no. You know? And then, boom, Joe Schmo dies at 56 years old, and you think about their life and think, Jesus, you know, were they truly a deeper, better kind of person when they left? A lot of times, not so much. Not so much. It was whatever their habit pattern was, continued on until that point, and then lights out. We have to look deeper. We have to be really honest. I don't care if it's your mother, your brother, your sister, your friend. You got to be really, really, really honest. And then you ask yourself the question, is that what I want to do? You know, do I want to sort of have this creative life of chaos and then lights out? Or do I want to create a legacy that makes greater peace, greater joy, greater love, greater insight? Do I want to do I want to have amplified that force in the world? See? So again, what's your life purpose? You know? In the higher sense of yoga, you're bringing the highest principles to bear. But in other aspects of yoga, you're bringing other principles to bear. You know, so you know, maybe the civil rights worker or the constitutional lawyer, they're practicing a yoga. It's just a lesser yoga. You know, the highest yoga brings the light of the kingdom. The lesser yogas bring more integration, slowly, you know, incrementally. But the masters say, in general, shoot for the top. Because if you reach it, you'll have the greatest influence. You'll have the greatest ability to influence. You know, a civil rights lawyer may change some legislation, but a saint can change the heart of a nation. See? So that's the difference. Either that you pick is fine, because at least it's a step forward. It's a step towards something positive. But the saints will declare, shoot for the highest. You know, they say, shoot for the stars. If you miss, you'll land up. You'll be seated amongst the stars. See. So this is what we have to do. Are any thoughts or ideas, questions about this is what Raj made me think about this week. What is yoga?
So,
Yeah.
yoga as a state of being versus poses and meditations,
Yeah.
how is that related?
Yeah. Yoga is a very broad term. Yoga really is the process that process which integrates you with the greater reality, with what is truth. Yoga brings you to that point of being part of that reality, part of the pool of undefiled truth. And that's what yoga is. There's many philosophical and manipulative process that we do within ourselves that purify so that greater and greater insight can come. A very elementary level, because we're all embodied being, is how do you bring the physical body to a point of health, stability, and vibrancy to make this journey. So that's the science of Hatha Yoga. It brings health, it brings harmony, it brings vitality to the system, so that the body is not pulled down into illness, so that you can make the journey. It's hard to sit here and meditate if you have a toothache, or if you have some malignant disease, plaguing your body. So the sages created the science of Hatha Yoga to make you fit, so that you can go on to do the greater inquiries, the greater activities, the deeper journey within. So yoga is a huge science. It's immense science. But it's the science that brings the finite to the infinite. That's what it is. Right now, we think of ourselves as finite, little elements. And the yogic process makes us integrated, fully integrated into the greater reality, not just a tiny little unit. See, a tiny, often frightened unit. See? What happens when you enter deep yoga and there's no more enemies? Can you imagine? Or no more insults. Whether physical or psychic, where there's no perception of insult. Isn't that a different reality? Isn't that a different universe to live in? The saints had no enemies. Some human beings had malignancy towards them, but they themselves experienced no enemies. Completely different consciousness. So that's the grand journey that we're all trying to take. That's why the yoga science is here, and it will always be here. There will always be saints. There will always be masters. As long as this realm exists, there'll always be patients. So they're trying to get you out of the hospital.
Are there enough good doctors?
There are enough. There are enough.
Good.
There's not enough patients desiring to get out of the asylum. That's the problem. Some people like the asylum. Some people say chaos is good. It's exciting.
Well, when most people view, it's paradise, right?
Yeah.
Although they live in hell,
Yeah.
especially people who are focused on gaining wealth, right?
Yeah.
Just earlier you were talking about how people are fixated on 100 different things.
Yes.
It's like I am this, I am that, and
Right.
identification to
Yeah.
the ego. And occasionally, we're influenced by, like coming here opens me up to a bigger awareness of the cosmos and the bigger picture. But I know 2 hours from now, I will forget again, as usual. And then, it's like this is the situation. Most of us don't crystallize it
Right.
enough. We forget, and then we have to keep.
Yeah, what you're saying is accurate. The reason you have the yogis and saints and masters and sangha is so that day after day, 10,000 times, 10,000 squared, you have that constant remembrance. That's why sometimes I jokingly say I'm a one-note horn. If you come to me 10 years later, I'll be saying the same thing. Because that's what it takes. We are vital, creative creatures. So we want to do our own thing. We want to experiment with everything. We want to look at everything. And even if we're making mistakes, we don't mind doing that mistake 10,000 times if it's entertaining to us. That's the way it is. So the teachers are there as a sort of a constant place to tie up to. It's sort of the law of association. It's over time you get impressed with the way of the saints. Over time you say that there's a stable reality, and actually have some desire for that stable reality. It's over time. It's not in the moment. You know, so it's just by constant association, constant experiment, and also constantly getting shaked and baked in the world and realizing, gee, you know, that didn't work. You know, we get smashed a few times and say, oh, I got to find something else. But it'll probably be some other distortion. But bit by bit, by persistent association, you start to make the right experiments, and also over time to get a little bit of humility, because every human psyche thinks they're a little god. You know, they want their own creation. They want to manipulate that creation. We all think of ourselves as a little bit of a god. See, so there's not so much humility. So we're gonna do 10,000 experiments before we bow our heads. See, that's the nature of the human condition. So it's okay. There's actually nothing wrong with it. It's just the way it is, life. But over time, with a little bit of insight, we can see how much unnecessary sorrow is being generated by our experiments. You know, sorrow to ourselves and sorrow to others. And then, you know, there comes some reflection is, do I really want to do that? Have I really been that skillful? But this is more sophisticated. This takes time to come to that point of reflection. To say I want to minimize the sorrow and maximize the joy. You know, and then to find an intelligent form of joy. Some people may say joy is drugs, or joy is alcohol, or joy is a party. That's a very limited perception. Over time, when they realize that those are forms of salt water, you never slack your thirst drinking salty water. You know, then nature will press them to look deeper, and then you start asking questions like, what was the greatest beauty I saw? What was the greatest love I experienced? What was the greatest sense of peace I experienced? Why? How did it happen? If I experienced it, it happens. It has to be in me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to experience it. It has to be a touch point. Now, how do I manifest that? How do I generate that? And then how do I see it in the world? Because if you don't see it in the world, you haven't finished your experiment. See? You have to be able to see it in the world. If you don't see it in the world, it still means there's a lot of psychic distortion. You know, we're still fixated on lesser qualities, lesser things. See? Yes?
Could you please talk about deeper stillness? Like in that state, do you have mental activity? Do you contemplate, or is just you know?
Good question. Interesting.
Because so I'm thinking in two ways. I like what you say about deeper inquiry, right? And trying to understand the nature of things and why you feel certain things a certain way. So that requires intense mental activity, because you know you go deeper into things, you have to think about, and so that's one side of it, right? The second side is I also read about and heard from you and others about deeper stillness, which I see that as a no activity, even mental activity, right?
Yeah.
So, and both have their own benefits. So I'm just trying to understand what is the
Yeah. One is classically called contemplation, which means deep brooding, deep mulling, over an idea, just to break something down into its most fundamental elements. That's the process of contemplation. In contemplation, you're doing a deconstruction of an idea, of an experience. That's not meditation. Meditation is a process of acquiring a profound psychic stillness, yet a very powerful awareness, where you're no longer thinking about anything. The process of thinking is in suspension. but the process of witnessing is heightened. See? So it's a moment-to-moment awareness without thinking. Because, see, the moment you start to think, you start to create. See? If you're thinking, you as an individualized being is creating. If you can put that in suspension and purely witness, meaning in that process of witnessing, your lenses of discriminative thinking are being neutralized. Your lenses of bias are being neutralized. See, because you're not thinking, you're not creating, you're not bringing your history to the table. You're not bringing your limited conception of your psychic ability to the table. You're not bringing it to the table. So what happens is what is inherently available to you starts to become, you become aware of what's inherently available. There's a lot of abilities you have that you're unconsciously suppressing because you have a vision of yourself. That vision of yourself is a suppressant. See? It's a capsule. So if you can suspend the thinking process and just be open to the witnessing process, then what's inherently available becomes consciously present. See? What's inherently available becomes consciously present. So like right now, we're comfortable thinking that we're in a three-dimensional world. What if the world is 24 dimensions, 50 dimensions? Are you comfortable then? See? Not really. You'll be totally freaked out, I guarantee you. But that's what happens in meditation. Is that as you sit and you've now taken the cap off of what's possible, because all of your ego is saying what's possible. Take that cap off. Now, what happens when anything is possible? See? So you're sitting there, and now in the moment you have to witness to what is truly possible in manifestation. See? So your whole concept of being a human, of being an ego, of being a personality, don't you think that's now challenged also? Massively challenged. Mind-blowingly challenged. Challenged so much that sometimes you come out of meditation and you have no idea why the body is still here. You have no idea why you're still alive. Because what you've seen is of such a grander nature, such a broader perspective, that this is a piece of dust. See? So it takes a while, actually a very long time, multiple lives, to be able to process what's really going on as opposed to what you think is going on. See? As opposed to the truth, as opposed to your creative, capped version of the truth. See? And then this capped version of the truth has to be integrated into that. And that's why they call it that. Because there's no other way of saying it. There's
I have a follow-up question. So these two practices, contemplation and meditation.
Yeah.
Is it like some people are more inclined to do or their strength is to do one of them? Like if somebody, let's say, following bhakti and they probably go a particular path, or somebody is more intellectual, they go a different path. So these two practices are inclusive or exclusive, or
I would say they're inclusive. Let's say you're saying jnana path and the bhakti path. They're both going to get you to the same place. Contemplation is there on both accounts. Meditation is there on both accounts. The garments are different. So the truth is that the jnana yogi, the very intellectual soul, there's a hidden profound love of truth that's making him use his mind. In the bhakti world, again, the loving nature is very exterior and visceral, but it's that searing quest of the intellectual, what is truth? See, the nature will express it differently. But inherent to the jnana yogi is bhakti. Inherent to the bhakti yoga is jnana. It's hidden. One is the physical expression, but the other is a hidden seed. It's there for both of them. They're going to both experience the same thing. Their routes will be a little bit different. But those seeds of deep questioning what is truth and deep questioning of what is love are inspiring them all. The jnani is inspired by love. The bhakti is also inspired by what is truth. You know? So it's just what's expressed and what's hidden. But it's there for both of them. The jnani will experience bhakti and the bhakti will experience jnani. They call it the two wings of the bird of paradise. You know, they'll experience it, but the external journey may be different. But the hidden revelations, you know, the jnani will experience bhakti and the bhakti will experience jnani. See? And then in their final resolution, they'll manifest both. Within them, within their being, they'll realize both. See? Now they may choose to express it, you know, through jnana or bhakti or raja or whatever. But that's just like being a cog in the wheel of the universe. They're just saying, "Oh, I'll fill that role." But can they fill this role, this role, this role? Of course they can. But just from a structural point of view, they'll say, "Okay, I'll help people along this route, and I'll help people along that route." You know. Amongst the sages, they're all the same in their realization, but in their application, different. Their realization is the same, but their application is different. See? So, good, because in this world of patience, you have different temperaments. So out of that realization, they'll say, "Okay, I'll take those with that temperament. I'll take those with this temperament. I'll take." See, some will specify, and then some are like Jagats gurus, where they're everything. You know, like a Shivananda of Rishikesh is like a Jagat guru. It didn't make a difference what your nature was. He would express mastery over all the different systems. Some will demonstrate mastery over a system, but if they've reached a level of master, they're all at the same level of realization. They're all a hidden emanation of God. See? So this is what we have. Contemplation is necessary because contemplation gives you an intelligent place to stand. See? Without deep contemplation, you're still all over the map. You know, there's still tons of information that is completely useless to the journey. That should just be edited out so that you can get to the point. That's what contemplation is good for. You know, it will provide an intelligent map. You know, meditation will provide fundamental universal experience as to your real nature, not to your created perception of self, but to the universal reality of yourself. See, that's what meditation will do. But that's why meditation is so scary in a way, because each human being has a relatively comfortable, some angst of course, perception of who and what they are. But what if you're a billion times that, and a billion times more pure than you imagined? Can you really wrap your head around that? You know? You know, what if you really are the heart of Jesus, but you're in this tortoise shell, you know, of misperception? See, that's the human situation. You're the heart of Jesus. You're the wisdom of Buddha. You know, you're the intelligent action of Krishna. But you've limited yourself into your own created bubble. See, so that's why we're all patients. We're all wrapped up in a profound misperception. that we cling to. We're clinging to our misperception. See? My Guruji once talked about a person running through the desert and embracing a cactus and then screaming, "I'm in pain, I'm in pain, I'm in pain." And the teacher says, "Let go." They won't let go. "I'm in pain, I'm in pain, I'm in pain." Let go. See? That's the human condition. We're embracing a painful situation and we won't let go. See, meditation means you got to let go. You have to let go of all the things that in your creation you thought were so. I am this, I am that. This is my history, this is my race, this is my weight. This is my perception. This is what I love, this is what I don't love. This is what I fear, this is what I don't fear. All of that is what you created. And the teacher is saying, let go. And we're saying, like, no way. We have a certain amount of comfort with our discomfort. We have comfort with our discomfort, so we don't let go. Hence, we all live, as human beings, we all live in some state of pain. We all do. Every one of us. We all live in some state of pain. We have good days and bad days, but we all have a hidden sense of pain. See? That's why we like chocolate cake. It momentarily makes us forget. That's what it does. Momentarily we forget that we're in pain.
How can we be kind and loving to ourselves and see the divine in ourselves in order to grow so that we can become what we're supposed to be, what we're intended to be?
Yeah. Good question. You have to first find some intelligent model. That intelligent model could be an affirmation. That intelligent model could be a prayer. That intelligent model can be the biography of a saint. You have to first emulate something. We all need some type of template. See? We've got to copy some working model. Find a model that works and copy it. See? That has to become part of our perception as to who we are or what our potential is. Because in the human condition, we can have very distorted mental states. We've all gone past people who are shouting out into the wind, schizophrenia, and they're talking to ghosts. We're all that way. We're all having all kinds of conversations in our minds that are not necessarily valid, not necessarily real, not necessarily based in a truth. See? So in some moment of lucidity, we have to find a truth, whether it's a prayer, whether it's a mantra, whether it's the template of a life of a saint, see? Whether it's an affirmation. And we have to grab onto it like it's a lifeline. Like we're in a sinking ship and we need something to hold on to. And then we use that as our first lens of lucid perception. Because you got to understand, you can't trust your mind. You can't trust. We're working with facilities that we put a lot more truth into than they deserve. We can't trust our feelings. We can't trust our minds. We can't trust them. They're interesting, useful tools, but they're not necessarily perceiving truth. They're perceiving they're perceiving through our lenses of bias. See? We're all perceiving through our lenses of bias. So our mechanism inherently is not that trustworthy. So you have to say, okay, where did a truth manifest? Where did a truth manifest and was stable? It could be in the life of a saint. It could be in a prayer. It could be in a mantra. And then you have to grab onto it like there's no tomorrow. See? And then you start to live and think and practice through that. That becomes your path into yoga. See? That's why there's scriptures. See? That's why there's prayers. They're all ways in. They're all ways in. Outside of your creation. There are ways in. The saints and the masters created ways in. See? So that's why prayer is useful. Because prayer will culture your mind. Saying the same prayer over and over and having a deep contemplation on that prayer, greater culture, greater purity, greater clarity will come to your mind and come to your heart. See? Or having a, some people chase Jesus, some people chase Buddha, some people chase Krishna, some people chase Gandhi. Having some saint that you say their life made sense, their life had meaning. And then to try to emulate that. But you got to have a hero. You have to have a hero. See? So that you can walk the next step behind them. That's what the whole guru principle is to give you a wisdom stable point to have reference to. To reference your psyche to them. That's what the whole guru thing is all about, to give you a stable wisdom reference point. And then the guru will say, practice this mantra, practice these prayers, practice this meditation, so that you can grow into what you are. See? Constant psychic expansion. As with the average human being, they are in a very limited bubble, and it's cycled over and over and over. They'll, from 40 to 55 or 60 or 80, wherever they die, they're living in a bubble. The yogic process is a process of persistent expansion. Who you thought you were when you were 30 is not who you think you were when you're 42, and not who you are when you're 72. There's a constant, persistent integration into a greater life. See, so that's what the yogic process is. So can you understand how revolutionary the process really is, whereby the average individual is constantly reprocessing what's in their bubble. And you're constantly, as a yogi, processing what is in the greater reality. Can you see the difference of the experience that you have? One is just reprocessing of what they've encapsulated as what is possible. The other is processing what is truly possible. See? To be a yogi is truly a revolutionary life. It's not a revolutionary life externally often, but internally it's a revolutionary life. Because the tendrils of your life are reaching deeper and deeper into the greater reality of existence, not into your small pot of creation. See? We have a small pot of creation. That's who we consider ourselves to be. Yoga destroys that pot, and it takes the greater expanse up to what your true possibilities are, what your true reality is. See? Yoga takes you from the finite to the infinite. See? The human ego keeps you in a pot of self-creation. See? That's the human condition, the ego. It keeps you in your pot of your creation. See? Completely different existences. Completely different existences. But the greater one is our evolutionary path. Everyone will move into that condition of absolute stable truth. Sat Chit Ananda. Everyone will do that. It's a question of time. How much do you want to live within your personal created pot of creation, as opposed to accepting the greater reality? It's your choice. You have absolute free will. What level of existence you want to exist at. It's your free will. Heaven won't force you at all. If you want to stay here 10,000 births, no problem. You want to stay here 5 births, you're good to go. So these are your choices as human beings. And often it comes down to how much you're willing to be shaked and baked. The hotter the pool, it's like, okay, it's time to get out of the pot. It's getting too hot. So this is the human condition. There'll be yogis here from now, from the beginning of time to the end of time, saying exactly the same thing. So we have to all understand, as human beings, we're grasping the cactus and screaming about our pain. And the gurus will always be saying, let go. Let go. Experience another reality. Let go. See? So, a lot of times in a common psychology, you'll have people investigating their pain. That doesn't make so much sense from a yogic perspective. A modest amount or medium amount of investigation is fine. But you have to understand, whatever you put your consciousness to, you amplify. You deepen the samskara. You deepen that psychic impression. So if someone punches you in the nose, it's not that good an idea to spend your life contemplating the punch in the nose. Because that becomes a template of pain that you are really embedding in yourself. As opposed to saying, this is a moment. It was a moment in the whole your existence. So look at what is the greatest in you. Because what is greatest in you is a deep reflection of the deeper reality. Not the momentary events. Not the momentary events. They were insubstantial and momentary. But there was love in your first breath, and there'll be love in your last breath. There's peace in your first breath, and there's going to be peace in your last breath. See? It's there. Whether you embrace it or not is another issue. But it's there. So the yogi says, embrace what is stable. Embrace what is persistent. In embracing that, you'll see that that is your nature. Not the momentary events that you've inflated. Do you think that the crucifixion of Jesus is that Jesus is fixating on crucifixion? Or is he fixating on love? Think about it. What did he fixate on? Even while being crucified, he's forgiving those who have harmed him. He's saying to the thief next to him, you'll reside with me in the kingdom. See? Did he fixate on the crucifixion? No. Did he fixate on his loving nature? Yes. See? So why are we fixating on the punch in the nose? See? He fixated on a universal principle. And that's what makes him so great. See? Think of all the petty fixations that we have. This one did this to me. This one did that to me. We only have so much time in the day. So are you going to spend your time creatively, positively, expansively? Or are you going to be contracting into a sorrow? That's our choice. Are we going to contract into a sorrow or expand into a beauty? It's our choice. See? So we have to fight for these choices. We have to fight for these processes. And then we get what we invest in. We will experience what we invest in. If you invest in meditation, all the glory of the kingdom becomes part of your experience. If you invest just in your ego, well, how much neurosis did you pour into that pot? How much fear did you pour into that pot? So, yes.
You use the word fight. To me, it doesn't mean fighting adversary, but it's more like an inner struggle, right?
Yeah, it's taking on a challenge.
It's like tapas. In yoga, there's a word tapas.
Yes.
That you intentionally engage in.
Yeah.
Burn something.
Yeah.
But so the path to awakening sometimes is like that.
It's definitely a tapasya. It absolutely is.
What? Tapas?
Tapas and tapasya are the same word. Yeah, it's a process.
But engaging intentionally towards, it's
a battle.
Yeah.
It's not easy. There is opposition. See, there is opposition, and a good deal of the opposition is self-created.
Mm-hmm.
See,
That's the hardest part.
yeah, that's why you study scripture, you know, and that's why you do meditation and do prayer and do mantra, because that sort of neutralizes your own internal opposition. See, but you have to have the force to do it. See, so and you know, we all want to lean back. And in the yogic process, you got to lean forward. You got to lean into the wind. So it is a battle, but it's see you can die like a lump of clay, or you can die enlightened, or you can die somewhere in between. It depends on what you want. That's why in the earlier talks we were saying you have to want God in order to receive that knowledge. You have to want it. If you wanted a car, you got the car. On a grander scale, if you want to know what is life, if you really want to know that, you have to invest in that process. That process is yoga. It's to see how things are, what things are. Okay? The eyes that we see through are not accurate. They really are not accurate at all. They see a very limited spectrum of what's going on. So in that meditational process, when you're learning to drop your lenses of perception, your biases, your favorable visions, learning how to drop that and to simply accept what is present, to experience what is present and accept it. See, that's a huge thing, because the moment you're accepting it, your ego is being dissolved, because you had a very narrow, limited way of seeing existence, experiencing existence. And in meditation, that is being completely changed. You know, when you say what is light, we have a perception of light, a common perception of light. But in the Bhagavad Gita, they talk about, you know, Arjuna seeing Krishna, and it's like the light of a million suns. Now, as human beings, we think, oh, that's sort of a metaphorical statement, because that's what we're comfortable with. What if it's a real statement? What if it's a real statement? I guarantee you, it is a real statement. In deep meditation, can you imagine becoming witness to the light of a million suns? And then the big hump is to get comfortable with that. You know, that kind of a light, we have a sense of annihilation, that we can't persist in such a condition. Through meditation, we realize even in such a situation as the light of a million suns, we persist. We persist. So psychologically, can you imagine the change that you will make when you realize, one, that such a thing is so, and two, that you can persist in communion with it? See? Your sense of self, how radically changed it is. That you realize that this is a clay pot reality, and then there's a big reality. So then all these issues of our personal mortality, don't you think they become far more lessened when you can persist in that kind of condition and still persist? You're not gone. You're not annihilated. So what's death mean now? You know, this tiny clay pot falling away? When you've been in this magnificent situation and still exist? Can you see? All of a sudden the angst of death goes. The angst of death becomes a sad joke for us. Do you understand? It becomes a sad joke that all these people are suffering, fearing of death, when there's so much more. This is the kind of thing that meditation will bring you to. Will make you present within. See? So many of the kinds of hidden angst that we have, gone, completely gone, zeroed out. See how much more emotional energy is freed up. You know, like me, I'm getting a little older now, a little bit long in the tooth. So more and more friends are going, and they're calling me, Hari, come. So, you know, it's almost like every 3 or 4 months I'm with someone who's passing. And the amount of fear and confusion that they go through is really terrible. You know, really terrible. They suffer. But if they had done this persistent prayer, persistent mantra, persistent meditation, they could have actually just slipped out of this clay pot quite easily, without fear, without distortion. You know, they could have realized that they could be going to a greater joy, you know, based on their actions. See, or to just a very reasonable, nice, pleasant condition. You know, if you're just like a regular good human being, not so bad when you get out. You know, you're in a pretty reasonable situation. If you've been hyper good, you became a yogi or something like that, then you go to a much more significant condition. But if you're a regular good human being, not so bad at all. More beautiful than here, I'll guarantee you that. More beautiful than here. So, you know, yoga is, again, looking at the deepest, biggest picture and becoming unified with that. Where you have no enemies anymore. See? And you have no fear. See? Bit by bit, you become... The key is to, pardon me, the key is to become stabilized in the condition. So that's what all the practice is about. One is touching the reality, but the rest of all of your existence is about learning to stabilize in it. See? Because we get drawn back into all this, you know, your mother, your brother, your sister, friends, and all your habits. You know, until those seeds are completely burnt, there's a way back to the world, as opposed to a way to the kingdom. See, so over time, the yogi has to burn all the seeds of attachment so that there's nothing left here for them, so they can leave freely without having the desire to return. See? You know, or if they return purely out of compassion. See, like the great masters, there's no karmic reason for them to come back. They come back sheerly out of compassion. They're the physicians coming back to the patients. They're no longer the patients. See, that's the thing. So those masters, they live in a sort of a enigmatical world. They're both limited and unlimited at the same time. They're a funny thing, you know. My Guruji once said to me, I'm trying to remember the words, something like limited in body, but not limited in realization. See? The body is going through all the conditions of nature, but their psyche is resident in the kingdom. See? It's an unusual situation. You know, so all the illnesses, ups and downs that can happen to this clay pot will happen to them. But their consciousness is not limited here. It's rooted there and extended here. Interesting situation, you know. So those masters are truly fearless, and they have no enemies. Can you imagine? What a wonderful situation, you know, where they rest is the bed of creation, you know, not self-creation, the creation. See, they live on the bed of consciousness itself. Can't be burnt, can't be drowned, can't be chased. Wind won't dry it. This is what the Gita says. So this is our evolutionary journey, our evolutionary arc, and it's just up to each individual what level of application. You know, what level of application. You know, yes, Sylvia.
I'm just curious if some of these masters come back without taking on a body. Does that sometimes happen? Or is it?
It's what you said. Come back. This is a little bit technical. Those souls are infinite. They have infinite awareness. So there is no back and forth for them. There is no locality for them in truth. See, they're present here. They're present everywhere. They're no longer localized beings. We are localized. They're not. See? So whether they're in another loka or beyond the lokas, beyond the dimensions, they exist without limitation. See? For our benefit, sometimes they cloak themselves in a form so that we can sit with them, we can talk with them, we can eat with them. See? From their side, there's no need. From our side, it's comfortable if we can hold their hand. It's comfortable we can talk to them. It's comfortable we can eat with them. So that's why these masters re-embody, for our benefit. Because of our limitations, they come back and exist within our limitations. At least they manifest a form within our limitations. So they have two eyes, they eat food, they go to the bathroom, they swim, they drink, so that they're not alien to us. Otherwise they'd be alien. So they provide physical intimacy. You can hold their hand, you can talk to them. See, because that's what we can relate to. You can walk with them. See, and then later on, as the student ascends in their consciousness, the physical presence of the master is not necessary, because a unitive experience comes. So whether he's in body, he's not in body, it's not the biggest deal. Any other thoughts, questions, curiosities? Long.
Was Guruji a specialist in a certain practice, or was he one of those gurus that did all the practice?
Yeah, he manifested as bhakti, but there was no discipline that was unknown to him. Once you acquire mastery, you acquire mastery. It's like 10,000 threads, and you can move any thread that you want. They have no limitation. So this soul they'll deal with this way. This soul they'll deal with that way, and they could be completely divergent ways of dealing with them. But it's no effort on their part. There's no effort on their part. They're just giving this child what that child needs. This child what that child needs. This one likes broccoli. This one likes carrots. So that's how it is for them. It's not an effort in it. And the thing is, over time, if you do these types of practices, you'll end up over time being with more and more souls like that. Of course, you'll have a root teacher. That's natural. That's just your guide. But you'll come into the fellowship of saints. You'll start to meet lots of saints, and they're all different, but they're all applying the craft of divinity to the human condition. So over time, this is not speculation. This is a fact. You will see many, many, many wonders, many, many things that are considered miracles. It'll become part of your normal life. Many things that we think are miraculous will become simply normal. Which is necessary so that you can start to, it explodes and expands your mind to what is truly possible, not what's mythical, but what is truly possible. That the science of God is infinite and it's not limited to our narrow perceptions. See? But you have to know that. You have to see it for yourself. That's what's really important, to see it for yourself. Because then 10,000 people can say this is not so. you understand why they're saying that, but you shrugged your shoulders. I'm sorry, I was there. You know, it happened right in front of me. So you have to acquire that kind of conviction in divinity, conviction in the potency of divinity. And that happens slowly through association. As you purify yourself, more and more association will happen. You'll be brought in. You know, you'll meet yogis, you'll meet mystics, you'll meet saints, and then later on you'll meet masters. And that's everyone will have that. It's just a question of when. But you have to have that persistent association. You know, you have to open the door in your heart. You have to invite them in, and you have to keep your eyes and ears open. See? A lot of people meet mystics or meet real yogis and meet saints. They don't have a clue. I'd say the average person doesn't. You know, I've met many saints walking, and I'll be walking through airports with them or walking around with them. And 99% of people have no idea what this person is. Because they look like, you know, Miss Grandmother, you know, or just regular fellow. And they have exalted consciousness. But the average human being, not a clue. Not a clue. See? They haven't opened themselves to it. You know, if you're closed to it, you're closed to it. If it's not possible, it's really not possible. Until you say it's possible. And then you start to look and say, okay, if it's possible, where is it? You know, and then you actually start to look. You know, and then say, well, what is a saint? Then you start to study. If you want to know what a saint is, start to study. Study some scriptures, you know, that declare the definition of saints, what those souls do, how they live, what they, you know, how do they get the force that they have? What is their potentiality? You know. So this is the law of association, but you first have to open the door of your heart, you know, and then you'll see all kinds of things, you know, you'll see all kinds of things. And then as you see and witness these things, these phenomena can happen through you. You know, it's not limited just to the mystics, the yogis, and saints. It can happen through you. You just have to know how, you know. You have to clean up a certain amount of your heart and then start the application process. And then you'll be amazed how much wild mysticism will happen through you as an individual. Don't think that it's just the other people that's that way. It's for anybody in this room if you make the application. See? That's the deal. You pay the price of admission, you know, and then it all happens. Don't think, oh, this is just for that yogi. It can happen to them, and I'm just like out in the audience. You shouldn't think like that at all. If it can happen in that yogi or that saint, it can happen in you, and that is for sure. That is absolutely for sure. But it's up to you. It's up to you. Sometimes you say, oh, I have my husband, I have my house, I have this. I don't want to rock the boat. Okay. You just put the cap on it. Nope, nature didn't put the cap on it. You put the cap on it. See? Sometimes you just don't want to rock the boat. You know, my family's here, I got a good job, I feel relatively loved, I'm good. Okay. It's okay you made that decision, but you have to understand the decision you made. Mm-hmm. See? You know, to become a real yogi means it's like the mariners of old who didn't really have a map of the ocean and thought, you know, there was a cliff at the end of the horizon, and they still got in the boat. That's a yogi. That's a yogi. See? They still got in the boat because they were that curious. See? As where their relatives are all saying, I'm good. You know? They've got their house, they got their job, I'm good. You know? I'll see you when you get back, if you get back. You know? That's life. That's life. See, so you have to have to be a real yogi, you have to have a certain kind of heart. You know, you have to be able to lean into the wind. You have to be able to, you know, head for the horizon. And all the maps at that time, they would write, there be dragons. You know? So it means this unknown, you really don't know. So they put all these dragons on the maps. You know, at the point of unknown, there's these dragons. So to take the yoga path, you got to get in the boat, you know, and you got to see the map that says there be dragons, and still get in the boat. See, so the courage has to be there. Yes, Sylvia.
So, Guruji, you had talked about, thinking about your top 5.
Yeah, it's even better if you make it top 3. The more narrow, the better it is.
Okay. And so, would you say we should be practicing them all at the same time, or do you want?
Do one at a time. It's too big. Do one at a time. Make that search for a minimum of 40 days, and keep a journal. You know, because every interaction you have with a person will be an experiment in that application, an experiment in that vision. See, and you'll start to build. It's like anything. You build a muscle. You know, how's a batter become a good batter? By being out there swinging all the time. You know, it really is that simple. Just radical application, and you build the muscle. You know. Any other thoughts, Christopher? Anything? You're good. Okay. I'm happy to see Mano, Asha, the little one. I'm extremely delighted that you've come. It's been a while. Yeah. Mano, actually, these 3 right from the back, Mano, Holly, and Susan, all were in the original temple, you know, years ago, and they're still here. That's really wonderful. It's really wonderful. So if you want to know about what happened in the earlier temples so many years ago, you can talk to all of them. They were there. 10,000 talks and all scriptures and hatha yoga and all this. Okay. Any thoughts or anything before we close? I'm really delighted everyone has come and spent the time together. This is what you have to do. You know, if you're going to really pursue yoga, you got to get next to a yogi. That's how it's always been. Get next to them. Don't think of yourself as an outsider. Don't think like that. You know, think that this is my friend. If you find a real yogi, think that this is my friend. So you shouldn't have any, I don't want to bother him, or I don't want to stop by. It's not like that. It's never been like that. The whole ashram system, the teacher was always in the community. The door was always open. They'd always have tea. They're there for you. That's their job. You know, that's their job. You know, they're there to help. You know, to give a deeper insight. So don't create a barrier where there's none. You know, the barrier is not on Hari's side. You know, and Hari doesn't want anything from you. You know, I'm with my master. You know, anything I want, I can get from my master. So it's really from this point of view, it's just sharing a joy. Sharing a joy and sharing an insight, you know, and hoping that you'll utilize it so that you have greater joy, you have greater insight. If you have greater joy, you have greater insight. Hari is really happy. That's the fact. That's the fact. You know. So that's, you know, the more joy, more insight you have, the more the ecology of the world will be purified, which is what we all want. You know, we don't want to live in a sewer. We want to live in a joyous, clean, healthy place. So by you becoming more joyous and more insightful, you know, the world is being purified.
If you feel like we can probably end with a story of any kind that you...
I don't know what story you want.
Any, your time with Guruji or anything that you...
Well, if you have the fortune of being with the master, I don't know about it. I can't. I mean, there's a million stories in me, but
just like any that you feel like.
Well, I just think, really, if you have the fortune of living with a master, being with a master, forming that kind of a unitive experience with a master, they're virtually the center of the universe. They really are. You know. There's like no better place to be on the planet, regardless of where they are. Because the thing is, every door, every opportunity is present. You know, and if you have a real relationship with a real master, you realize that every opportunity to witness the infinite is possible, to actually experience it, not to hear about it, not to read about it, but to actually viscerally experience it, or to viscerally witness it. It's possible. It's there. So that's the thing. So everybody should have a desire to get next to these souls, so that the whole concept of God can be validated. You know, if you actually viscerally know that there is a God, and it's not limited to just a Christian, a Jewish, a Muslim point of view, that is far vaster than that, and far loving and kinder than that. You know, it's not limited to a human perspective. You're okay with a lot of stuff. You know, you really feel pretty good about things, and you just want to do your part, just like your teachers are doing their part to help purify the world. You know, you want to do your part to help purify the world, and to help other people have the same opportunity you have. So it's like, if I've got a great big, the most delicious cake here in front of me, do I really want to sit there and eat it by myself? Do I really want to do that? I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm going to chop it up into as many parts as possible and hand it out, because I want my friends to have the same joy that I'm experiencing. You know, there's the same opportunities that I have. You know, so that's really what it's like when you're around a master like Sadhguru Sant Keshavadas. You have infinite joyous opportunities, infinite joyous possibilities, and there's not 1 ounce of puffery. That I'm saying, not 1 ounce of puffery. You know, it's the best place on the planet, man. So, you know, everyone here is a friend. You know, why wouldn't I want you to have that same joy, that same opportunity? Why wouldn't I? Come on, if all my friends are smiling, isn't that better than everybody weeping? You know, I want everybody to be smiling, and everybody to know that their fears are not so much so. See, that there's greater joy, greater love, greater possibility. You know, far less limitation than you imagine. If you just learn to work the system, you know, if you learn how to get out of the trap, get out of the psychic trap. Meditation, mantra, prayer, they get you out of a psychic trap that we're all bound in. We're bound in a trap. That we really have to realize that. We're all caught in a trap. You know, a psychic trap. And because everybody else is in the trap, we don't realize it. We think that that's normal. See? It's like everybody in the psychological institution, a mental house, thinks everyone's normal. It's a madhouse. But they all think it's normal. That's this planet. You know, look at all the misbehavior going on, and we think that, oh, I'm good, okay, you know, just hope the bullet misses me. We think it's normal. We accept it. You know, it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. You know, Jesus said it's not acceptable. Buddha said it's not acceptable. Krishna said it's not acceptable. The masters and saints say it's not acceptable. See? Those are the physicians talking. So we really have to say the madness in my heart and the madness in the world is not acceptable. What's acceptable now? See? And then you have to become the engine of what is acceptable. See? That's how you start yoga. That's the door into yoga. See? Yeah.
I'm just curious how long the Oakland Temple was open, and when did Guruji go back to India?
Well, Guruji would spend, Sant Keshavadas would spend about 6 months in India and then 6 months traveling around the world. And he used the Oakland Temple as a hub. So he was in and out all the time, in and out all the time.
Oh, okay.
You know, and it was a blast. Sometimes people think, oh, the master is just like this dry wisdom stick sitting there. It was fun. It was really fun. And you got to see, I mean, there's like hundreds of people coming through the door, And you got to see how each individual was treated as an individual and spoken to personally. They didn't speak to you as a group. He spoke to each person as an individual. So it was really, you really learned a lot, and it was always about magnifying the greatness in a person. And not seeing, the small, like, I'll give you a sort of a silly example, and it shows my own weakness. There were these ladies who wanted to do some dancing. Now these women were vastly overweight and vastly uncoordinated. It almost was macabre. But Guruji would sit there with absolute joy, and they would do on these like musical skits and things, and it was horrid. I mean, it really was. It was really horrid. But Guruji loved every minute of it, and would encourage them, dance more, dance more. I mean, it was like watching a three-legged mule. It really was. That's what I used to think. This is terrible. But that wasn't in Guruji's heart at all. He loved every movement, every song, every dance. They're the most untalented women I've ever seen in my life. It was really something. But all he saw was the joy and the wonder and the love of it. And I would sit there watching thinking, what am I seeing? But it's a difference in consciousness. I saw the three-legged mule, and he saw the joy and wonder. That's the difference between a simple disciple and a master. So you learn stuff like that. He learned, what he focused on was the loving possibility, and took great joy in that. That's a big teaching. That's a big teaching. And he wasn't that way just, during satsang time. He was that way all the time. All the time. He always saw what was possible. And he also saw the process to the possible. So he was always giving that knowledge. So it was extraordinary. I really can't even, in any kind of real way, tell you what it was like. It was like Oz times a billion. It was wonderful. And just truly everything was possible. And all the, if you read the scriptures and stuff, and you hear all these powers and abilities, all these wonders that happen through these various masters. By being with a master, you actually saw all that stuff. It actually became normal. It wasn't like something you read in the scripture. It was happening right in front of you. It's just extraordinary. So, all these infinite powers are no longer, for a guy like me, no longer, something I heard in the scripture, it's wonderful, but, fictitious. No, I'm sorry. I was there. Stuff is real, really real. So, God is validated through the master. See, that's the thing. God is validated through the master. See? So that's what you get to participate in. So you become a participant. And then if you accept this path of yoga in a serious way, you really do enter into what I constantly say is sort of this Marco Polo journey, where every wonder you can witness, and you will die with a joyful legacy. So that's what what happens when you're around a master. You won't die common. There's no way. There's no way. Even if you die quietly and no one is there, you die with joy. You die with anticipation, because you've gotten a glimpse of what's beyond. So you're not like, oh, forget that stuff. Forget that. That's a joke. That's a human joke. You die with a great anticipation and a great joy and a longing. Great next adventure with less limitations. See, there's a lot of limitations in this clay pot. Getting out of this clay pot is a lot less limitations, a lot more joy, a lot more possibility. Northern possibility, not southern possibility. You know, thing. So I don't know, but everything is possible. Everything, and you get to see everything. They validate it. Anything in the scripture. I used to jokingly say, Guruji, you're like living scripture. I would say that to him, you know, because I'd read all these scriptures and I'd look at him and I'd read all these scriptures, and it's literally being lived out right in front of me. All that wild stuff was being lived out in my presence, you know. So they validate the scriptures, they validate God, and they show that what the teachers do is they intimately introduce you to God, to divinity. On an intimate, personal level, you're introduced. And that's the biggest thing. Once you're introduced, there's no more maybes. You know, maybe there's a God, maybe there's a... That's over. That's over. That is like so dead. You know, so that's the great thing. Once you know that this is really, really real, and there's access points, and that you can access it, then it becomes a great personal adventure. It really is. It's a great personal adventure. You know, and every yogi, their adventure is a little bit different. You know, God's not limited. You know, there's no limitations going. So they all come to the same realizations, but their journeys are their own intimate personal journeys. See? So it's interesting. You know, like you can see other yogis who have vastly different experiences, but you understand each other like that because the realizations are the same, but the journeys are different. See? Any other thoughts, ideas? You got to pay the price of admission. If you're like totally comfortable with my house, my car, my wife, I'm good to go. Okay, you'll be here. This is your residence. But if you look at the vastness of the stars and beyond that, that's a yogi who's looking beyond. You know, their resonance will be far broader, far broader. And it's yours. It's yours if you want it. Any other thoughts, ideas? Have I made yoga a little bit more personal? I hope. Yeah. Okay, the technical definition of yoga comes from the word yog, which means to yoke. That's where the word comes from, yog. To yoke the finite to the infinite. Okay. So we circle back around to the technical definition. Okay, I think they have plenty of food in the kitchen that will be coming out. Any closing thoughts? Then what we'll do is we'll chant Om 3 times and then sit for a little bit. And I hope I've given a little bit more clarity to what is yoga. Gently take a deep breath in. And then release the breath. And then you can open your eyes. And I really thank everyone for coming. This is what you have to do in order to figure out what yoga is all about. You have to invest in the process. You got to show up, basically. If you show up, then all kinds of opportunities happen. You know, you don't show up means you're just totally invested in your own limited dream. The moment you're with yogis, broader dream. Just by yourself, limited dream. Until you become a yogi, and then you're constantly looking for the divine dream. That's how it works.